Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If you, I'll say this before we do intros. Feel free to unmute, turn your video on. I know different instructors do online differently, but I would like for this to be as, I'm trying to think of the right word, not online as possible. I prefer lots of interaction, questions, comments, that sort of thing. And I want you to feel comfortable to engage with the class. This will go much better and be much more enjoyable if we interact rather than me just talking to a screen with a bunch of names on it. So totally fine. I encourage you to please ask questions, participate. Let me know what's going on. Okay. Well, let me do intros. My name is Danny Jugan. I will be your instructor for the course. What is this? Is this 3112?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. I've got, I think, 4 different classes this semester, so I got to try to keep them all straight. This is design and implementation of object-oriented systems. You guys should have taken data structures. Everybody taken data structures?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to go through the course, do the traditional first day of class kind of stuff. I'll go through what to expect in terms of assignments and where your grades are coming from, what topics we're going to cover, and what to expect in terms of that. As I mentioned a minute ago, feel free to ask questions. So if there's a break and you want a question you need to ask, feel free to just say it out loud. If you want to type it in the chat instead, that's totally fine as well. So I've got the chat pulled up on my other screen. I'll periodically glance at that and answer questions there. So feel free to speak out loud, feel free to type in chat, whatever's easier for you. Looks like somebody's asking a question. Does anyone have their courses erased for not showing up on the Canvas page? So 2 things. What Walter said is correct. You can go into your courses and favorite them to get them to show up on your dashboard. But sometimes it takes, like if you just registered for the course, I think you don't get added to Canvas until midnight. That used to be how things worked. I don't know if it's still how they work, but sometimes it takes a little bit to get them added. 24 hours. There you go. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. All right, does everyone see the Canvas page on my screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. This is where we will go over all of the content for this semester. Now, I will say this course is specifically designed to cover object-oriented principles, design patterns, how to build software with object-oriented in mind. I will show you lots of examples, and we will go over lots of different stuff. The way most class periods will work is we'll go over whatever concept, whatever topic we need to cover for that day. And it will be kind of a, we'll go through some slides, we'll go through some examples. And this course is front loaded with the content, meaning we're going to cover all of the content right at the beginning. And then from there, we're going to have less content, and I'm going to give you more time to work on your semester-long project. Okay. And so the idea is, rather than taking the course material and spreading it out over the course of the semester, like we do in most courses, I'm going to front load it. So we cover everything right at the beginning, not at the beginning, but everything in the first part. And then you have all of that knowledge to apply for the rest of the semester, rather than, waiting until the last month of the semester and teaching you stuff that would have been really good to know as you were in the beginning stages of working on your program, if that makes sense. So some of the stuff that is posted on Canvas is supplementary. Some of it is more required in terms of what you're going to need to know. As we get into each of the topics, I'll let you know what is what and what you need to focus on. So let's take a look at the Canvas page first. All of the content that you're going to find that we are going to go through is going to be found in the modules section. All right, so if you hit modules, this will go through all of the topics that we're going to cover. Okay, this course does go through a lot of object-oriented principles. That also covers a lot of UML diagrams and how to conceptualize and diagram your programs so that it makes sense not only for you, but also for the other people that are potentially working with you, or the people that you are making the program for. All right. Like I said, we will go through each of these topics, and we will go through some of these slides, but not all of them. Some of them, like I said, will be supplementary, and I will try to show you as many examples as possible of what I have done in the past. Okay, so that's where all of this information will be. If you go to the Zoom link here, obviously you guys already found that this morning. If you made it into class, this is where all of our meeting links will be. As you got the message when you joined this morning, these are going to be recorded and available for you to watch afterwards. Attendance to these live sessions is not required. So if you would rather view them at a later time, or you're unable to join for whatever reason, that's totally fine. I'm not going to take attendance, and these will be available for you to watch afterwards. You just go to previous meetings and they will be listed here. Questions so far?
So are you basically asking that, telling us that this attendance to these sorts of Zoom meetings, are they required? But definitely recommended and advisable though, yes?
Sure. So obviously, so to answer your question, no, they are not required. You do not have to come. I'm not going to take attendance and make that a part of your grade. My philosophy on that is you guys signed up for an online course, and typically when you sign up for an online course, it's because that was the only option, but usually it's because you like the flexibility of an online course rather than a face-to-face course. So I do not require attendance. That's why I record them, so you can watch them later. The course is more flexible with your life and your schedule. However, like you said, coming to the live meetings gives you an opportunity to ask questions. If I say something or I'm explaining something and it doesn't make sense, gives you the ability to say, hey, can you explain it this way, or ask a question, and we can go through all that stuff. So I certainly recommend you guys coming, but I do not require it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Based off that question, are you, for future lectures, is there any structure to the meetings, or is it just like we come in, ask, and then you just kind of go on until we get it?
So I'm gonna teach it like it's a regular class. I taught this class face-to-face 10 years ago, something like that. And so I'm going to teach it like it's a face-to-face class. So we'll start class, I'll go over whatever the concept is for the day. I'll explain it and pull it up on my screen and kind of walk through like we were face to face, and just like a regular class. As we go through it, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask then. So it's going to be just like a regular class. You're just not required to attend the live sessions. You can simply watch them afterwards. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions are there? That didn't take long. All right, so let's keep going. As you can see, we have a TA for this course, Juhi. She has already set up office hours. She is familiar with the course, familiar with the assignments, and will be a great resource to you guys. So if you have questions, need some clarification, she is awesome. Definitely attend her office hours. I will be obviously available to you guys to help as well. Email, I will hold my own office hours on Friday, and I'll post those as well. So feel free to join. She will be grading all of your stuff in terms of the deliverables, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So make sure that you are nice to her. All right, so let's get into your assignments and what you're going to be going through. As you can see, that if you go to the syllabus section, this is nice because it shows you chronologically everything that you've got coming up. And so today is the 10th. Obviously, we've got a meeting from 8:30 to 9:45. We won't go this long today, certainly, and most days I don't know that we'll go that long either. But class Tuesday, Thursday, TA office hours are going to be, looks like Monday and Wednesday from 12 to 2. So it kind of gives you guys access to me or Juhi from Monday to Thursday, especially if I hold office hours on Friday. But again, chronologically, the syllabus link is nice because it shows you exactly what's coming up and due. So the first thing that you guys have due is the first quiz on the software design lifecycle, the SDLC, which we'll get into soon. Assignments are right here. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but definitely use the syllabus link to make sure that you aren't missing anything. Although I will ad nauseum go over what you guys have coming up at each class period and what you guys need to be working on and kind of where you should be in terms of the timeline. Okay. All right, so let's go to the assignment section here. This holds all of your assignments for the whole semester, which is, you've got 4 milestone, you've got 5 quizzes, and you've got a final project. There is not a midterm or a final. That is covered under the quizzes, which are pretty straightforward. And most of the work that you'll be doing will be on your semester-long project, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Okay. Okay. So let's first do the quizzes. Quizzes are pretty straightforward. They are relatively short, like 5 or 6 questions. There are 5 of them, and they span the course of the semester. So you can see the first one is on the 20th, and the last one's April 21st. These count as 30% of your total grade. These are online, so you'll take them online through Canvas. You may take them only once, and so make sure that you are careful when you take them. You may use your notes. They are open note, open book, open intranet as you take them. And I do drop the lowest one. So if everybody screws up, and I understand with only 5 questions on the quizzes or however many there are, making a mistake can really drop your grade. So I do drop the lowest one there. But this content comes right from what we'll be going over in class, what will be posted right in the module section of Canvas. So shouldn't be any surprises here. This is your assessment on the content of the course, making sure you kind of understand it. On the other side, you have your project milestones. And before I jump into what these are, I do want to go over what the project is, because this is going to make up a large percentage of your overall grade. Okay, and so if you go to modules, at the very top in this class overview section, before we get to any of the topics, there's a document that goes over the project. Okay, so let's take a look at this together. I'll just do it here. All right, before I jump into this, are there any questions about the quizzes or what I said with that?
Are there any like what was the word? Are they multiple choice, or are there some like open questions?
They're all multiple choice.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this project. In most of the courses I teach, I take this route because I think it's better. I'm not a huge fan of exams. I personally think we learn better by doing. And so most of your grade for this semester is going to come from this project that you're going to be doing, which is you're essentially going to be creating a small scope, a small scale program. And we'll talk about some examples of what that looks like, but you're going to be creating some sort of small application from start to finish over the course of the semester. And the milestones that you have are kind of like checkpoints along the way. They are going to be separate submissions that you turn in that are related to the project. And most of them will be various documents that you're going to create. And so we'll go over through the semester, like what a use case diagram, what is an activity diagram, and how they relate to creating software and why they're important and what they're used for. And so I'll explain what these documents are. I'll explain how to create them and how they're related to your program. And then you'll actually create one related to what you're doing and turn it in. Okay. So let's talk about the project. So first of all, this is individual. No, you may not work with another person to create these. You guys at this point have taken at least 3 programming courses. So you should have taken 1212, 1213, 2214. Some of you might have taken other ones like software engineering or other upper level programming courses. So at this point, everyone should be capable of doing something like this, start to finish. I know everyone kind of comes in at different programming competencies in terms of what you're comfortable with, but this is something that you will compete or complete individually. Okay, let's talk about language. This course is focused on object-oriented design, which is a particular design type. It's a programming style. You guys got exposure to this heavily in 1213. I know that there are other languages that handle object-oriented programming. Coding for this class needs to be done in Java or C#. Both of those languages have strong object-oriented principles and concepts built right into them. I put this here. I taught this class online last semester, although it was asynchronous. It wasn't face-to-face. And if you have, well, I'll just leave this like this for now. Java or C#. All of you should have had a course in one of these already. I believe you probably had at least one, probably had 2. Has anyone never had a class in Java or C#? I used to teach data structures, and when I taught it, it was in Java. I think it still is. Okay. Michael, have you coded in Java? C# is almost identical to Java. Yes. And in fact, a lot of the examples that I'm going to show you this semester will be in C#. Side note. Okay, data structures from Java. For a long time, I taught high school for like 5 years, and I taught AP computer science there, and that was in Java before I came to UNC Charlotte. And I taught data structures here and some other courses, and I did that in Java as well. And so my background, my initial starting point was Java. I do a lot of game development stuff, and I teach almost all the game development courses. And for that, I use C#. And so when I transitioned into that, I had never coded in C# before, but I had some experience in Java. And the transition from Java to C# was extremely simple. The languages and the syntax is almost identical. And so if you have experience in Java, you are more than welcome to stick with that. Like I said, C# is almost the same thing as Java. There are some slight differences, but a lot of the examples that I'm going to show you this semester will be in C#. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. Both handle object-oriented really well, so it's totally up to you which one you want to use. Okay. Now, as far as the topic for your program, you're free to select whatever you want. Think along the lines of a very simple, like a single task that helps solve a very basic problem. My suggestion to you is that your project should be the scope of your project, like how big you're covering, like how many problems you're solving, how big that problem is. That scope should be very small. Okay. I give you a couple examples here, like a time clock program for an employee that tracks, how many hours they've worked. So maybe you have it to where an employee comes to your program, the program's open, and they type their ID number to log in, and it says, okay, what time are you logging in? Or maybe it's just how many hours did you work today, and you enter it and it keeps track of all of that. And then you can go in as the manager and print out a list of all the employees and how long they've worked and how much they should be paid. Something simple like that. Another example is a budgeting program that tracks expenses. And so maybe it's as you go through and you spend money through the month, you would type in, okay, I spent $10 at the ice cream store, and it would automatically categorize that, and you'd be able to go in and print out a list of all of your expenses by category, and it'll total them for you and all that sort of stuff. Another example is a scheduling program, similar to like, there's a bunch of these online. The name is escaping me right now, but allows people to, I have it right here, something that can keep track of multiple inputs as far as when people would like to meet, and then it can display when the overlaps are and something like that. So in all of these examples, it's a very small scope. Think about this for a little. I will give you a couple more examples as we kind of get into this. And there is one example program that I created that we will use throughout the semester as kind of a reference point for all of these. Okay. Requirements for the program. Everything can be console based, meaning the console is the area where you type in. So if you think back to your old 12, 13 class, where you would like type in your name and then it would like print out to the console, hello, and then whatever name you typed in, that input and output takes place in the console. So it's fine if you want to do everything there. This is not something that you have to do, or you have to create, buttons and a graphical user interface. Everything can be completely text-based. Okay. So you'll work on this program over the course of the semester. There will be various submissions or deliverables that you will have to turn in over the course of the semester. And so we're going to take a look at those real quick. Some of these you won't understand because we haven't gone over those concepts yet, but I do want to give you an idea of what they are and what you'll be doing. Okay, before we get to that, what questions are there? Can I answer any questions about this project so far?
Yeah, would a good example be using for making the project? Would it be a good example be the Google Calendar, how you can input meetings and things like that?
Yeah, that would be fine. You could absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you said it's only problems, right? So I couldn't make a fun little game or anything. It has to be a thing that solves an issue.
Games solve issues.
Yeah. Well, that's just my question. Could I do a fun little game if I wanted to, or does it have to be a scheduling program or
no, you
budgeting?
could. So generally, what you want is you want to approach this, and doing it this way will make the semester a little bit easier for you as you look at these milestones. You want to select something that can be used from multiple perspectives. So think categorically, you've got different users using the program. And so, for example, you might have, if we think back to the budgeting program or the time clock program, you have an employee interacting with the program, inputting how much they worked, and then you have a manager interacting with the program. And there's the cat. You have a manager interacting with the program, printing out what all the employees did. You have two different user types interacting with the program. That will make it a little bit easier, but that's not necessary. And so you could do some sort of game, but I would suggest if you're going to do that, you would want the user to be able to interact with the game in more than one way.
Okay.
So maybe it's not necessarily this, but the user can play the game, but they can also create things to add to the game. Maybe there's a level editor or an item editor, something like
Gotcha.
that. It will make certain things easier as you kind of go through this.
So the user has to put in information and the program has to mess with it in some way or interact with it. So something like that.
Generally, yeah.
Okay.
Most of the programs are going to do something like that. The example that we're going to use, and I didn't actually create this as an example to use for this. I created this for my wife who wanted something to make it easier to plan meals. So we have 4 kids, and planning meals is time consuming. And so I was like, I'll just make you a program. And so I made this program. Yeah. Can you see, what do you see right now?
We can see it.
Katie, yeah, we can see
Okay.
Katie's meal maker.
So this is essentially what I made for her. And so you can go in and add any item you want. So somebody give me an item, any side item that you would eat with.
Mashed potatoes.
Okay, so you go mashed potato. Is there an E on potatoes? Potato? That doesn't look
Yes.
right. There is. So full disclosure, I am somebody put steak as a side. That's a great side item. Okay, and then it would add where's mashed potatoes? Oh, we already had mashed potatoes. So remove mashed potatoes. What steak is a side item? I will do fried rice. Hold on. Fried rice. Okay, so you got it here. And then we go return and then meals menu. You go and actually create meals. So you add whatever side items you could possibly want. And then you could go and add a new meal. And so this could be whatever meal you want to call it. And then the number of sides that go with that meal, because some meals have one side, some meals might have two sides. Like if the main dish is larger, you might not have multiple sides with it. So if it's something larger like lasagna, typically you would have maybe just salad with that or bread. And so you might do two. But certain sides wouldn't go with every main meal. And so this allows you to say, all right, so if we're going to have, let's say we're going to have steak, somebody put steak. What goes well with steak? And so here are all of the options, all of the sides. So baked beans go really well. Fried rice, I don't think goes well with steak, so I would leave that off. Ketchup is not a side. It's just like a big pile of ketchup. So mac and cheese, you get rice, rolls, couscous. I guess a lot goes with steak. So we'll put all of this. French fries, do French fries go with steak? Ketchup is not a side. All right, green beans. No, I'm gonna say no to potato chips. Okay. Now, thank you, Michael, who puts ketchup on their steak. So the number of sides we would put in corresponds to the number of sides that would go with this. And so essentially what the program is going to do is when it generates the calendar, it's going to pick two of these to go with it. Okay. So we'll say two sides with this. And the frequency is how often. Oh, you guys are making me discuss. I'm reading the chat. Anyways, the frequency is how often the AI is going to select this on the calendar. So if you want to have this like once a week, you would put the frequency higher. If you don't want it that often, you would put the frequency lower. So I'll hit accept. And now we see steak is added to this. Looks like I need to edit the display here a little bit. And so we'll go return and then meal calendar. This is the calendar. And so you can go generate new calendar and it's going to automatically generate random stuff. Now, I don't know what this special events is. Oh. It's been a while since I made this, so I forget what I did here. So for example, if on Monday night is always movie night, you don't want a meal generated for that. You would just leave that off. You also have the off. I'm reading the chat. It's also, if for example, you're like, okay, everything looks great except for this. We don't want tacos on Sunday. Tacos are only on Tuesday. Everybody knows that. And so I could select this date and then click generate new meal, and it would just generate for the selected one. Okay. And then you could click save calendar and that would save it and all that sort of stuff. So that is the extent of the program. That's it. And so something along those lines is what I'm looking for. Right. So I'm still reading chat. Wait till you dip fries in a chocolate shake. That's like the old Wendy's dipping them in Frosties back in the day. Yeah, so we will look at hang on. Can you guys see this? We will look at all of the code for all the source code for that program as we go through the semester. I wrote this in C#. To a piece of meal with calories. Calories are deceiving. You should not pay attention to calories. That's my unofficial medical advice. I suppose, yeah, that's correct. Sugar is the real enemy. I suppose we could modify it to add calories to that, but we don't need to do that. Anyways, we'll go through, like I said, all of this is written in C#. I used a program called Unity, which is not really designed to make these kind of programs. It's more of a game development program, but that's what I do. And so I just used that because I was super familiar with it and could do it really quickly. And so we will be going through that in the semester. You guys do not need to use Unity to do this. Definitely not necessary. Yes, I made it with Unity. So, I mean, we'll go through the whole project and I'll show you exactly how everything was created and how that stuff works. Like I said, can you see this in the background? I do game development. That's my professional area. And so Unity is what I'm familiar with. All right, let's get back to the milestones. So you're going to have 4 milestones related to this project that you're going to turn in. The first is super simple. Bullet hell games. Isn't it just where you're like on a screen shooting a bunch of bullets at stuff coming at you? Okay. Yeah, that's like old school Galaga. Avoiding the bullets. Yeah, there you go.
Man, I never would have guessed you like video games based on the systems in the back there and your wall art, everything else.
My wife got me those. It's funny because my kids will come in and look at those and they'll be like, those aren't really game consoles. Because they go all the way back to Nintendo. Is that the first one? Yeah. Nintendo's the oldest one up there. I don't know if you guys can see all the way to the top.
That's a GameCube, right?
Because you're talking it like it's an artifact. Like, oh, it's an antique. It's a GameCube. Yes. Which one's a GameCube? The purple one is a GameCube. Is it this? That one is a GameCube. It's kind of an antique. Whatever. You're making me feel old. All right. So the first milestone is going to be all you're going to do is you select a topic. That's all you're going to do. And again, we could run through all of these, but if we go back to this, and in fact, if you look at it on the syllabus page, this is super simple. So January 27th, so in about 3 weeks, this is due. So if you click on this, it takes you right to it. It tells you exactly what you need. There's a rubric provided for each of the assignments, so I try to make it as clear as possible. Should be full transparency with you, so you know exactly what you need to turn in. And the first one's really simple. All you're doing is a project proposal. And as we go through the course and you have questions about what specifically you'd like to do, feel free to ask. not something that should be super stressful. I don't want it to be stressful for you guys as far as picking a topic, but I'll help you select something that's within an appropriate scope so it doesn't get more difficult than it should be for you guys. Okay. And that's it. You've got 4 milestones that you're going to turn in. And at the end of the semester, you're going to turn in your final project. When you turn in your final project, all that you need to turn in is access to the source code. And so there's 3 different ways that you can do this. And I want to bring this up now because it affects the way in which you kind of set up your projects. So you have 3 options for how you turn this in. You can upload a zip folder containing your project. This is probably the easiest and the less amount of tech stuff involved. So if you just want to work on this completely offline, just upload a zip folder containing your project, make sure it has access to all the source code and all that sort of stuff. The second option is you can provide a link to an online repository containing your project. And so if you work with repositories, use Git or whatever, something like this, you can just send a link to that so we get access to it. That is totally fine. Third option would be to provide a direct download. So if you want to upload it, if you've got it in Drive or Dropbox or some sort of cloud storage, you can simply send a link to that as well. So, and that's it. Again, like with all the other ones, there's a rubric provided so you know exactly where your points are coming from. I think that's it. What questions can I answer for you guys?
When we submit our first milestone thing, is that where you approve our project and reject it, or do we do that before?
No, that's generally, and I do the same thing when I do game design courses. Rarely do I have to say, no, this is not a good project. And so when you submit your project proposal, that is essentially the approval. Like I said, I can't think of the last time I had to say, no, this isn't good. And then I think the last time I did that, all I said was, we just need to tweak this a little bit. I don't necessarily want you waiting a long time to get started. And so if you have a decent idea for what you want to do, but you're not 100% sure, just ask. Just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Is this good? And I'll give you kind of thumbs up or thumbs down, or just tell you yes or no. But yeah, after that point, that is essentially the approval of your project.
Are we allowed to work ahead? So like, once we have our project approved, are we is it possible to just kind of get started on it and try to finish it?
Yes, you have access to everything. See right now, assignments. You have access to everything right now. I believe the quizzes are open. Obviously, there's a due date on them, but I think they're open now. So if you want to work through and do all the quizzes, go for it. Same thing with the milestones. I would, unless you're already really familiar with UML diagrams and what these kind of diagrams are, I wouldn't suggest submitting those. When we get to that point, I'm going to show you lots of examples and explain how they work, explain what it is that you should be looking to put into your specific diagrams for your programs. But you have access to everything already. There's nothing that will become available later on in the semester. So there's a question in chat. Can I come to you if I have problems with my project code? So here's my philosophy on help with code. As a general rule, yes, We have TA, she's awesome. I'm more than happy to look at your code and help out. But I have some prerequisites for that. Whenever you ask for help, and there's no limit on how often you can ask for help. So don't take this as me saying, don't ask for help. When you ask for help, you need to ask a specific question. And it's fine if you ask a lot of specific questions, but you need to ask a specific question. And what I mean by that is what I want to avoid are things like, hey, my program won't compile. Can you look at it and help? That's not a specific question. Or, hey, my program's crashing. Can you help? Not a specific question. Oftentimes, those sort of questions or those sort of pathways are an excuse or kind of a source of laziness. Because what will usually happen is if you investigate the problem enough to get to a very specific question, most of the time you'll find the answer yourself. And again, I'm not saying that I don't want to help you. I'm trying to teach you how to be self-sufficient. And so very often I still ask for help. I use the internet all the time. In fact, I was last night working on finishing up submitting a game to mobile. And at the end of every play, the game would lag just for a second. I had no idea why. I've already released the game on Steam and Xbox and PlayStation. And so I didn't have this issue there at all. It was working fine, but it would lag right at the end of every play just for a second. And I had no idea why. So pulled up the profiler, traced it down to this one error that I had never seen before. It wasn't an error, it was some sort of system call. I had no idea what it was. So I Googled it and found a forum where a bunch of people were talking about it. Turns out it was essentially a garbage collection call. So then I had to go through and figure out, why are we garbage collecting here, and all this sort of stuff. But if I got to the point where I didn't know why that was happening, that would be a specific question. Like, this specific call, I don't know why this call is being made here. Can you help? Asking specific questions is always really good. And as a general rule, if you don't understand the problem well enough to ask a specific question, then you haven't spent enough time with the problem. Okay, let me say that again, because it's worth repeating. If you don't understand the problem well enough to ask a specific question, then you haven't spent enough time with the problem. Okay, you need to boil the problem down, break it down to a single issue or several single issues that you can identify specifically, and that's what you should ask. Okay, those sort of things will make you a much better coder, it'll make you a much better person, frankly. To be able to have a specific issue and break it down to a question that you can ask directly. So let me summarize. More than happy to help. TA is more than happy to help. When you ask for help, ask a specific question, not something super generic like, hey, can you look at my code? It's not working. And no joke, I'm not exaggerating when I get that all the time. I'll get emails like that. Hey, can you look at my code? It's not working. No idea what class it's for. No idea what assignment it's for. It's just, here's my program. And a lot of times it's just a single script. Like you might have 10 scripts or 10 classes in your program and you send me a single one. I don't know what I'm doing with this. Like I can look at it, but anyways, be specific. No, you don't get extra credit for playing and giving constructive feedback on me. Trust me, I have all the feedback I need, and then some. I have enough feedback that will last me for the rest of my life. Okay. Yes, actually, football my game. Questions?
I think I have an idea for the project, but I want to know if it's like appropriate or if it is something I can do.
Okay.
So I work as a server when I'm not in school and stuff. And one of the biggest problems that I get while waitressing is when someone asks me if there's an allergy in a certain product. And a lot of the times I'm not sure because like it doesn't tell you in the like the menu or whatever. So for example, I don't work there anymore, but like Red Robin has these like little tablet phone things where they input the orders that people have. And I was wondering if I could do a project that kind of revamps that and lists the allergies that the food contains, and then you could just say no allergy, or you check it so that it'll automatically let the kitchen know that, oh, this person has this allergy. Make sure it has no bun because they have a gluten allergy or something like that. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I think that would be great. And you have one side where you would have some sort of system manager that would go in and input all of the information. Here's the ingredients for all of our menu items. And you could even specify, you could pre-list common allergies. And then when someone wants to order a particular item, just cross-reference that with whatever their allergy is, and then it will flag it, and you could do whatever you want with that information. But yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, that's my idea. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a
Go ahead.
quick question.
Go ahead.
So are we allowed to do sort of like mods of existing programs? So like, given Miranda's example, say there was a open source point of sale system, right? Would she be allowed to make a mod that just adds on the allergy functionality?
No, I want you to create from scratch.
Okay.
There's a lot of not knowing the entire source code is going to be, well, I'll say this, a lot of the diagrams that you're going to be creating are really complex. And so it would be difficult to isolate just the part of the program that you are working on when you are creating these diagrams. And so, like, for example, a point of sale system is massive. There's lots of different stuff that goes into that. And so it would be difficult when we're creating these diagrams to, like I said, just isolate a particular part. It would kind of not work well. So that's why I said keep the scope small, but you do need to create the entire thing. Good question. All right. There was a question from chat related to what I was talking about a little bit ago about asking for help. And it says, so we need to break the unrecognizable bug into several parts first. No, not necessarily. What I mean is, like, obviously, if you have a bug in your program or something's not working the way it should, I don't mean that you have to break it down to a single thing. What I mean is you need to ask a specific question about it and not just say, hey, my program's not doing what it should do. And even if it's a specific question like, hey, I type in the allergy information, but it's not pulling up when I click on the right thing, or I input a gluten allergy and the person wants to order a burger, but when I click on the burger, it's not telling me there's a gluten allergy. That's not a specific question. It's a surface level question, or I should say, it's not what I mean by a specific question. A specific question would be, it looks like I'm calling this function, but the function's not getting called and I don't know why. Like that breaks the problem down to a specific point. If that makes sense. It's like, you know, here I'm inputting all of the allergy information, and I know this function is getting called. We're good up to this point, but this function is calling this other function. And here's the call, but the function isn't actually getting called, and I don't know why. That is what I mean with a specific question, breaking it down to like, I'm tracking the problem. I start here and it ends here, and we're good all the way down here. And at this point, it stops working, and I don't know why. That's what I mean. Yeah, finding out what's going wrong with it, and giving lots of information, like investigating it yourself to the point where you hit a roadblock and be like, I don't know why it's not working at this point. Okay, because typically when you find bugs, that's exactly what you do. First step is to reproduce it. So I got to recreate the bug, and I need to be able to reproduce it consistently. And so once you get that, then you start at the very beginning of the process. Okay, so I selected the item the user wants to eat. I select their allergy. Everything is good up until that point. But when I click on whatever button, it doesn't call the function. It should, and I don't know why. That's what I mean by asking a specific question. What do you mean bugs that can't be found anywhere?
So like basically if a bug that you find on your terminal isn't really being mentioned at all, like on places like CodeStack or like places you usually search for like information.
I got you. So a lot of times the issues that you guys are going to run into aren't really bugs. They're errors with your programming, in terms of like, you didn't set up something correctly, you didn't link something correctly, something along those lines. And so that's what I mean by investigate and kind of like debug your program and go step by step and check at each point in the process, are we still functioning correctly here? Does the program have the information it needs? And then it's going to pass it on to this. Does it have what it needs here? Does it have what it needs here? And then at this point, for whatever reason, we lost that information, or function's not getting called. That's what I mean by kind of investigating it. Not necessarily, not every bug fix is going to require you to go to Google and search it. A lot of it is just going to be tracing your code and figuring out where you went wrong, that sort of thing. And my whole point with this was that you need to do that investigating before you ask for help. And oftentimes when you do that investigating, it will get boiled down to a single question, a single problem that says, this function should be calling this function, but it's not, and I don't know why. Just an example. And that's not a bug that you would necessarily go to Google with, but it's one that you could come to us with. I just need to make sure before you reach out to the TA, before you reach out to me, that you have done that process, because that's what's going to make you a better coder.
Do you have like any like techniques? Because like usually whenever I do these type of things, it can get pretty time consuming.
Yes, you are correct. So the technique that I just described is what I do. So when something's not working, I go back to the very beginning of the process, and I go step by step through the process. And so, for example, if the example that we're talking about with Miranda's allergy information, and let's say this particular bug in the program is the normal process is we input the allergy, we input what the person wants to eat, and then we click a button and it tells us whether or not there's an allergy in that food, or whether or not the person can eat that food without worrying. And so we input gluten allergy, we input burger, and we click the button, and it's not showing us the allergy. That's a bug. It's not working as intended. And so I would start at the very beginning of the process. Okay. And so we input the allergy. And then after we input the allergy, I would do some sort of output statement to the console to make sure that the input was received and stored properly. Then we would input the burger. We input what they want to eat. I would do a check there to make sure, one, that we still had the allergy information that we entered, and two, that we had the meal that they wanted to eat properly stored and saved. And then I would go through to the next point and make sure we still had all of that information and all of the information that that particular process needs in order to make the appropriate decision. And that's what I mean. I would go through all of those steps. That is my general approach for bug fixing. But I will tell you that it's difficult sometimes. Yes, it's time consuming. And so not to be, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but this is the nature of programming. I spent a year and a half on one issue one time.
Well,
And so I don't necessarily have a ton of sympathy for people who are like, I spent an hour trying to fix this bug. It was so, I get it. I've been there and I understand that everything is relative. But I had a single bug that I could not solve for a year and a half, and I worked on it for a year and a half before I found out what the issue was. It was one line of code, by the way. It prevented us from releasing to PlayStation 1 year. So if you go back and you look at the history of Access Football, we skipped a year on PlayStation. It took me a year and a half to figure out what the issue was. So yes, sometimes you just have to stay with the problem long enough to solve it. The issue was the bug was whenever you would create a franchise, so you would create a team and start a league with that team, everything worked fine, but as you went through and went week by week through the season, it would eventually crash. And it was a memory issue, but that's all the information I had. Come to find out, yes, that's me. I made Access Football. When you would, and this was only for PlayStation, when you create a save file for PlayStation, you have to specify how big it is. And I didn't make it big enough. That was it. And it's like super obvious and super like, duh, why wouldn't you just make it bigger? But the way porting to consoles work is they give you a bunch of code and none of it makes any sense. And you're looking at it like, what? And so it was hidden in one section really, really deep in there that I eventually found. And it was one of those things where like you find it and you're like, oh, after a year and a half of searching for it. So
are these type of like bugs usually like found more in game development, or it's like something that occurs anywhere in like other type of fields for coding?
I mean, we've all used all kind of software that doesn't work the way it should, and so I'm pretty sure they're everywhere. So
Okay.
if you were banking on it just being games, sorry, you're probably gonna have to deal with it on your end too. Yeah, coding is like an endurance sport. That's right. People often ask in the game development courses, like, what skill is the most important for me to be a game developer? It's like, do I need math skills? Do I need like really solid programming skills? And I often say the most important thing you need is grit, like not giving up. That's it. That's all you need. You'll be fine if you just can work on a program, project, problem, and not get discouraged and give up. So that's all I got. What other questions you guys have for me?
When it comes like coding, basically, when it comes like art skills, do you basically have to like be like all right at it, or?
That's the extent of my art skills.
Oh,
That's it. So no, you don't need to be good at art. I struggle to draw stick figures. And the only reason I'm good at that is because I've done stick figures for so long. And if you look closely, the arm isn't even attached to the body. So don't criticize my work. No, I'm awful at artwork. Thank you, Kai. You get bonus points, half point rounded down. You know what? I'll give you 10 points on your midterm. We don't have a midterm. Sorry.
Nice.
Yeah.
I never do well on tests anyway.
All right. No. Sorry, I'm trying to read chat at the same time. All right. Questions for me. Let's finish up. Yes, everybody gets 10 points on the midterm. Let's see how much people were paying attention.
Do you think it's possible for like professors to give us 100,000 points?
Sure. All right. That will wrap us up for today. If there are no questions, we will break, and I will see you guys on Thursday at 8:30, and we will get started with some object-oriented stuff. Hold on, I'm reading. Did I develop actually football myself or with the team? There was another developer that was with us for a little bit. I would say I did 95% of it. And there will be some that we'll look at. So when we talk about some object-oriented principles, we'll look at some code. No, we're not hiring. Is teaching my side job. We'll look at a lot of code from Access Football, because there are a lot of concepts that we will cover in this class that are well suited for Access Football. Is teaching my side job? That's a good question. I don't know what my real job is. My real job is being a dad. That's my real job. Do I stay at home? Yeah, I am home. Yes, I'm not on campus this semester. I haven't been on campus since COVID. Not because I'm scared of COVID. I just, as much as I love you guys, I'd rather be home. I will be on campus in the fall though. Taking care of children in their 20s and real children. I don't understand, Miranda. Taking care of children in their 20s. Are you saying my children are in their 20s?
No, no. What I meant is that college students act like children sometimes, and you are a professor who has to deal with it sometimes. So you deal with children who are in their 20s, and you also deal with your own children because you're a family guy. That was what I was trying to say.
That's good. That's very deep. Yeah, I love that. That's good. I will say most of you guys do not act like children.
I'm glad that's the case for this class, because I've been in children-filled classrooms before.
Yeah, I can drink from my own bottle. I can do it myself.
I'm super proud of you.
Thank you.
That's big time stuff. I should see the Discord. I tend to avoid Discord.
But you have a Discord for your football thing on the bottom of your screen.
I do. Which is enough Discord for me. Yeah, I use Discord to communicate with my team, and there are some. It is a public Discord, so there are a lot of fans of the game and community people in there. But the original reason for it was to communicate with the team.
Hey, Professor.
Yes, sir.
Can we leave? No. I was just wondering if
Always.
Okay.
Always. You are not required to be here. I've been trying to end class for the past 10 minutes. People keep asking questions, which is totally fine. But as you may remember, attendance is not required. So you are more than welcome to go at any point. These will be recorded and posted. So if you remember, if you go to Zoom and then previous meetings, they will show up there. So you can always check them out there.
Okay. Thank
No, you're totally fine. You don't have to apologize for keeping me. I'm more than happy to answer the questions. I will ask Austin, if I pick up access, can I send you my bug reports? Yes, you can send me your bug reports, although there are no bugs in the game. Lots of bugs. Go ahead.
I just had another quick question about the project.
Sure.
So I have you for the advanced game design and development class as well.
Okay.
So I was wondering if I could use the same project for both classes, or do I need to do separate?
Good question. No, you cannot use the same project for both classes. You have to do separate.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, Professor, I have a question. Is there a textbook that's required for us to have?
Good question. No textbook.
Thank you.
Textbooks are a scam.
Thank you. What other questions can I answer for you guys?
Oh yeah, that reminds me. When you guys like publish games like Access Football, do you guys like have to like usually pay huge money to like do Steam? I sort of like think I heard something about that sort of thing on the internet, right?
Yeah. So when every platform's different. Typically Steam requires you pay $100 to put an application on Steam. That's something that is new within the past few years. But they take a percentage of your sales. Most companies, Microsoft, PlayStation, or Sony, and Valve, they take 30%. That's their standard publishing agreement.
Okay.
All right. Any questions related to the course that I can answer? Awesome. Well, this went on longer than I expected, but I'm glad you guys had so many questions. Late policy, 10 points a day. Don't be late, but I will accept it late. 10 points a day as the late policy. I think that's it. All right. There's no specific syllabus. Somebody asked if there's a syllabus you can check. If you go to the syllabus page here, this has everything you need. The only thing that's on the syllabus that I didn't post is the academic integrity policy, which is a university standard. Don't cheat. Make sure your code is your own. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the programming project and what is okay to use online and what is not and that sort of thing. So we can talk about that more next time. I know we're over time. So I will see you guys on Thursday at 8:30. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you then. I'm going to end.
You too. See you, Professor.
See you
Thank
guys.
you.